Hey there, welcome. I'm here to help you relax tonight. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It really makes us feel like the global community it is. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's begin our evening together. Story 9. The Offering at Ravenwood Creek. The storm wasn't on the radar. One minute the highway was baking under a pale, August sun. The next the sky was a bruised purple and rain was coming down in solid, blinding sheets. My wipers were useless. I was crawling, white-knuckled, squinting for a taillight to follow, when I saw it. A flickering neon sign through the watery gloom. Ravenwood Creek Lodge, vacancy. It was a place out of time. A two-story log structure hunched against the rising wind, looking less built and more grown from the dark pine forest that pressed in on all sides. I didn't care. It was shelter. The lobby was dim, smelling of pine sap and with smoke. An old man with a face like a weathered walnut sat behind the counter, reading a newspaper. He didn't look up when the door chimed. Room for the night? I asked, water pooling at my feet. He peered at me over his spectacles, his eyes pale and cloudy. Just passing through? His voice was a dry rustle. Storm caught me, I said, forcing a smile. He nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something. One night. Cash only. He pushed a heavy ledger toward me. Sign here. The ledger was ancient, the pages yellowed and brittle. The names above mine were faded, some written in a tight, cursive hand. I signed quickly, my own name looking modern and out of place. He handed me a heavy iron key with a large, wooden fob carved into the shape of a crow. Room 7. Upstairs, end of the hall. Dinner's at 7 sharp in the dining room. Don't be late. The room was exactly what I expected, a 4-poster bed with a quilt, a dresser, a small fireplace. But it was clean, and it was dry. The storm howled outside, a living thing trying to get in. I felt a strange sense of relief, of being safely tucked away from the world. At 7, I went downstairs. The dining room was long and low-ceilinged, lit by kerosene lamps. A dozen tables were set, but only a few were occupied. A family with 2 sullen teenagers. An older couple eating in silence. They all looked up as I entered, their conversations dying. Their stares weren't hostile, just intense. Assessing. I took a small table by the fireplace. The old man from the front desk emerged from a swinging door, carrying a large tureen. He began ladling stew into bowls, serving the other guests first. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace. He placed a bowl in front of me. The stew was thick, dark, and smelled gamey. Local venison, he said, not looking at me. Special tonight. I was starving. I took a bite. It was rich, flavorful, but with a strange, metallic aftertaste. I was so hungry I ignored it. As I ate, I became aware of the silence. No one was speaking. They were just eating, watching the fire, occasionally glancing at me. The only sounds were the crackle of the fire and the relentless hammering of the rain. The old man returned. How is it? He asked. Good, I said. Thank you. He nodded. The creek provides. He said it like a mantra. After dinner, I went back to my room. The storm was still raging. I tried the TV. Static. No cell service. I was cut off. I built a small fire in the fireplace and sat watching the flames, feeling a deep, unnatural drowsiness pull at me. The stew, the stress of the drive, the hypnotic fire, it all conspired to drag me under. I was woken much later by a sound, a scratching at my door. I sat bolt upright, my heart pounding. The fire had died to embers. The room was freezing. Scratch, scratch. It wasn't a branch. It was too deliberate, too low to the ground. Hello. I called out, my voice shaky. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then, a new sound. A low, wet, guttural whispering, right from the crack under the door. It wasn't words. It was a sound. A plea. A threat. I scrambled out of bed, backing away from the door until I hit the cold wall. I fumbled for the iron key, clutching it like a weapon. The whispering stopped. I heard a soft, dragging sound moving away down the hall. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat in the chair, wrapped in the quilt, staring at the door, the key gripped in my hand until my knuckles were white. At first light, the rain had stopped. The world outside was dripping and steaming. I packed my bag in a frenzy. I had to get out. I went downstairs to settle my bill. The lobby was empty. The ledger was gone. I called out, "Hello." The old man emerged from the back room. He looked at my bag, then at my face. He didn't seem surprised. "Leaving?" he asked. "Yes. The storm passed. I need to get going." He studied me for a long moment. "The creek is high," he said. "The bridge on the old highway might be out. You should take the mountain road. It's longer, but safer." It felt like a warning, or an instruction. I paid him with cash from my wallet. He took it without counting. "Safe travels," he said, his tone flat. "The creek provides." I almost ran to my car. The air outside was fresh and clean, washing the smell of the lodge from my lungs. I started the engine and peeled out of the gravel lot. I came to the fork he mentioned. The sign for the old highway was there, pointing left. The mountain road wound up to the right. I hesitated. The old highway was faster. I was being ridiculous, spooked by an old man and a bad storm. I turned left onto the old highway. The road was flooded in places, but passable. I drove for miles, seeing no other cars. The forest was dense, pressing in. Then I saw it. The bridge, or what was left of it. The creek had swollen into a raging brown torrent, chewing at the crumbling concrete supports. The center span of the bridge was gone, collapsed into the water. The old man was right. It was out. I cursed, stopping the car. I'd have to turn around, go back, take the mountain road after all. I was wasting time. As I put the car in reverse, I saw it on the other side of the ruined bridge. A figure, standing perfectly still in the middle of the road. It was the old man. My blood went cold. It was impossible. There was no way he could have gotten here before me. No other road. He was just standing there, watching me across the gap. He raised one arm, not in a wave, but in a slow, deliberate gesture, pointing down at the raging water. I followed his gaze. There, tangled in the branches of a fallen tree being swept downstream, was a shape. A large, dark bundle. And as it spun in the current, a flap of cloth came loose. It was the quilt from my room. And wrapped inside it, pale and lifeless, was a mannequin. Its blank, wooden face turned toward the sky for a moment before the water dragged it under. The creek provides. The old man was gone. I sat there, my hands frozen on the wheel, the roar of the water the only sound. I understood then, with a cold, absolute certainty. The ledger, the stairs, the stew, the thing at my door. I wasn't a guest. I was the offering, and the creek had accepted. Page 2 of 5. The engine idled, a frantic, humming counterpoint to the roar of the water and the static in my brain. The creek provides. The words echoed, now drenched in a horrific new meaning. It provided for the lodge, for the town, and it required provision in return. The mannequin, the quilt. It was a message, a receipt. We gave it something. You were spared. For now. My foot slammed on the accelerator. I reversed so fast the tires skidded on the wet asphalt, then threw the car into drive and sped back the way I'd come. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see if the old man was there again, watching me flee. The mountain road was a narrow, winding ribbon of asphalt clawing its way up the side of the mountain. The trees formed a dense canopy overhead, plunging the road into a premature twilight. There were no guardrails, just a steep drop into a mist-shrouded ravine on one side. My hands were glued to the wheel, my shoulders tense. Every shadow seemed to move. Every drip of water from the leaves sounded like a footstep. The lodge's isolation was no longer quaint. It was predatory. The whole forest felt like it was watching, waiting to see if the offering would try to take itself back. I drove for what felt like an hour, seeing no other cars, no signs of life. The GPS on my phone showed nothing but a blank, green void. The silence in the car was suffocating. I turned on the radio, twisting the dial through hissing static, searching for a human voice, a song, anything. A voice crackled through, faint and broken by interference. A local news report. Flash flooding continues to cause road closures across the county, particularly in the Ravenwood Creek area. Sheriff's Department is advising all motorists to avoid the region until further notice. In other news, the search continues for Michael Evans, a 20-year-old hiker who failed to return from a trip in the Ravenwood Basin 3 days ago. He is described as, the signal dissolved into a burst of static. I twisted the dial, but the voice was gone, swallowed by the white noise. Michael Evans. The name meant nothing to me, but the timing, 3 days ago, sent a fresh chill through me. The creek provides. Had it provided him, too? The road began to descend, the trees thinning slightly. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. I was getting out. I was going to make it. Then I saw the lights ahead, flashing red and blue. A sheriff's cruiser was parked across the road, blocking both lanes. A deputy in a rain slicker stood beside it, holding a flashlight. Relief, so potent it made me dizzy, washed over me. Authority. Safety. I slowed to a stop and rolled down my window. Thank God, I said, my voice trembling. Officer, you have to. Can't let you through, ma'am, the deputy said, shining his flashlight into my car. His face was young, grim. Rock slide half a mile down. Road's completely buried. Crews won't be able to clear it until morning at the earliest. The hope died, strangled in its crib. No, you don't understand. I have to get out of here. I have to. Nobody's getting through tonight, he said, his voice firm. His eyes scanned my interior, lingering on my bag on the passenger seat. Where you headed from? The lodge. Ravenwood Creek Lodge. Back there. I pointed a thumb behind me. His expression changed. The professional neutrality flickered, replaced by something else. Curiosity? Pity? Old Man Miller's place, he said, almost to himself. He looked at me more closely. You stay the night? Yes. I got caught in the storm. I need to leave. Something's not right there. He was silent for a moment, listening to the rain that had started to fall again. Only one way back to the highway now, he said finally. The old logging road. It's rough, but it'll get you around the slide. It comes out near the town. The town. Ravenswood. The thought of more people, a gas station, a phone, was a lifeline. How do I get there? He pointed his flashlight back the way I came. Go back about 2 miles. You'll see a break in the trees on your left. There's a wooden sign, mostly rotted. That's it. Follow it down. It's steep. Go slow. Thank you, I said, the words bursting out of me. Thank you so much. He nodded, but didn't smile. You be careful on that road, ma'am. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. And when you get to town, maybe just keep driving. Don't stop for nothing. You understand. The warning was clear. He knew. He knew about the lodge. He knew about the creek. And he was telling me to run. I nodded, too terrified to speak. I rolled up the window and executed a clumsy 3-point turn on the narrow road, my heart hammering. In my rearview mirror, I saw the deputy watching me go, his flashlight beam a lonely eye in the gathering dark. I found the turnoff exactly where he said. It was barely a road, 2 ruts filled with muddy water, cutting into the dark forest. A splintered wooden sign, the words long faded, hung crookedly from a post. It looked like a mouth opening into the earth. I had no choice. I turned onto the logging road. It was a nightmare. The car lurched and bounced over rocks and through deep puddles. Branches scraped against the sides like skeletal fingers. The descent was steep, the path treacherous. I crept along, my knuckles white on the wheel, staring into the headlights that illuminated a tunnel of dripping, dark green. The forest felt different here. Older, watchful. The trees were massive, their trunks thick with moss. I saw things in the periphery of the headlights, pale shapes that flickered between the trunks, gone before I could focus. My mind, stretched thin by fear, conjured images of the mannequin, now animate, moving through the woods, its blank face seeking me. The road seemed to go on forever, winding deeper into the ravine. The deputy said it would come out near the town. How far was near? Then, the headlights caught something ahead. A figure, standing in the middle of the muddy track. I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt. It was a young man. He was dressed in hiking gear, a rain jacket, boots, but they were torn and caked with mud. He was shivering violently, his arms wrapped around himself. He looked up as the lights hit him, his face pale and streaked with dirt. It was the hiker from the news report, Michael Evans. He was alive. He stumbled toward the car, a desperate hope in his eyes. I hesitated for only a second before unlocking the doors. He was a person, a real person, proof that I wasn't going insane. He yanked open the passenger door and collapsed into the seat, breathing in ragged, sobbing gasps. "Thank you," he choked out. "Oh God, thank you. I thought I was going to die out here." "What happened?" I asked, my own fear momentarily eclipsed by his raw terror. "I got lost," he said, shaking his head, his eyes wide and unfocused. "The storm, the trail washed out. I fell. I've been wandering for days." I heard sounds. In the woods. Following me. He looked at me, his expression pleading. You have to get me out of here. Please. I'm trying, I said, putting the car back into drive. There's a town ahead. We'll get help there. No, he said, his voice sharp with panic. He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. Not the town. You can't go to the town. They're in on it. In on what? I asked, a new dread coiling in my stomach. The lodge. The creek. They all know. He was babbling, on the verge of hysteria. They leave people out here. For the creek. I saw them. I saw the old man leading a group up the mountain, with someone tied up. They were taking them to the source. His words confirmed my deepest fear. It was a ritual, a community effort. The deputy hadn't been helping me. He'd been hurting me. The logging road wasn't an escape. It was a detour, a scenic route to the same damnation. The creek needed its offering, and Michael Evans had escaped his, which meant I was now the only candidate left. I looked at him, at his wild, terrified eyes. He was a liability to them, a mistake, and I had just picked him up. We were both targets now. The headlights illuminated a bend in the road ahead, and parked across it, completely blocking the path, were two trucks, and standing in front of them, illuminated in my high beams, were three men. One of them was the old man from the lodge. Old Man Miller held a shotgun, casual, resting it in the crook of his arm. He wasn't smiling. He just looked tired. The other two men were younger, bigger. They held heavy, wooden clubs. They had been waiting for us. The offering had tried to run, and now they had come to collect. Time seemed to slow, crystallizing into a single, horrifying moment. The idling engine, the rain drumming on the roof, Michael's ragged breathing next to me, the three figures standing like statues in the glare of my headlights, their shadows long and distorted against the wall of trees. There was no room to turn around. The road was a narrow ditch behind me. Going forward was impossible. Old Man Miller took a step forward, his boots sinking into the mud. He didn't raise the shotgun. He didn't need to. The threat was absolute. Get out of the car, son, he called out, his voice cutting through the rain. He was talking to Michael. You've had your adventure. The creek is waiting. Michael made a sound, a low, animal whimper of pure terror. He shook his head violently, pressing himself back into the passenger seat. No, please. One of the younger men spat on the ground. Told you we should have used stronger ropes, Miller. This was it. This was the end of the road. Literally. My mind, numb with fear, scrabbled for a plan, a miracle. There was none. Then my eyes fell on the gear shift and the four-wheel drive lever. My car was an old SUV, a relic from a past life I'd never bothered to upgrade. It had high clearance, and it had four-wheel drive. The men were focused on Michael, on their escaped offering. They weren't looking at the driver. They didn't see me as a threat. I was just the delivery mechanism. I made a decision. It wasn't brave. It was desperate. I slammed my foot on the accelerator and yanked the wheel hard to the right. The car didn't go forward. It lunged off the side of the logging road, plunging down the steep, forested embankment. The world became a violent, jarring chaos. The car crashed through undergrowth, small trees snapping against the grille and windows. Branches screeched along the sides. We were bouncing, sliding, tilting at terrifying angles. Michael screamed, bracing himself against the dashboard. I held onto the wheel for dear life, my only thought to put distance between us and the shotguns. A loud bang rocked the car, a tire blowing out on a sharp rock. The SUV slewed sideways, then slammed to a sudden, jarring halt against the massive trunk of an ancient pine tree. The impact threw me forward. The seatbelt locked, digging hard into my shoulder. My head snapped forward and hit the steering wheel. Stars exploded in my vision. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the ticking of the hot engine and the relentless rain. Then, a groan from the passenger seat. Michael was alive. I fumbled with my seatbelt, my head throbbing. I looked back up the embankment. Through the trees, I could see the wavering beams of flashlights. Voices, angry and shouting. They were coming down after us. We have to go, I gasped, shoving my door open. It groaned in protest, wedged against a bush. Now, Michael was in shock, staring blankly ahead. I grabbed his arm and pulled. Now, the urgency in my voice broke through his stupor. He scrambled out his side. We were in a small, muddy clearing, the car wrecked and steaming. The embankment we'd just plunged down was a sheer wall of mud and broken vegetation above us. We couldn't go back up. We had to go forward, deeper into the ravine. This way, I said, pulling him into the trees. We ran, stumbling over roots and rocks, slipping in the mud. The flashlight beams behind us swung through the forest, getting closer. They knew these woods. We didn't. We ran until our lungs burned. The sounds of pursuit grew louder. They weren't shouting anymore. They were hunting. Michael suddenly pulled up short, grabbing my arm. "Listen," he hissed. I stopped. I heard it too. Over the rain and our own ragged breathing, another sound. A low, constant roar. Not the wind. Water. A lot of water. "The creek," Michael whispered, his face pale. "We're getting close to the source." The source. Where they took the offerings. The flashlights were closing in. We had no choice. We moved toward the sound. The trees thinned suddenly, and we emerged onto the rocky bank of the creek. But it wasn't the swollen torrent I'd seen before. This was something else. The water here was black, moving in a slow, powerful, swirling current. It emerged from a large, dark opening in the rock face. A cave, its mouth half submerged. The water poured out of it, ice cold and smelling of minerals and something else, something ancient and wet. This was it, the source. And standing on a flat rock by the water's edge was Old Man Miller. He was alone. The shotgun was gone. He held a long, wooden pole with a hook on the end, like a gaff. He was looking at the dark mouth of the cave, his back to us. He'd outflanked us, or he'd known exactly where we'd end up. He turned slowly. His face was sad, resigned. "It didn't have to be this way," he said, his voice almost gentle. "The creek provides. It asks for so little in return. A life for the lives of the whole town. It's a fair trade. It's murder," I screamed, the rage and terror finally breaking free. "It's tradition," he corrected me, his eyes cold. "And you broke it. You interfered." He looked at Michael. "The creek was promised a life. It will have one, or it will take more. The flooding last year, that was because we were late with the offering. We won't be late again." He took a step toward us, raising the gaff. It wasn't for pulling things out. It was for pushing things in. Michael and I backed away, our feet slipping on the wet rocks. The water was at our backs, icy, black, and deep. There was a sound from the cave, a deep, gurgling, sucking sound. The water level at the mouth seemed to drop for a moment, then surge back out. It was breathing. The creek was hungry. Old Man Miller advanced, his eyes fixed on Michael. "It's time, son. Be brave." Michael looked at me, his eyes wide with a final, desperate plea. Then he did something I didn't expect. He shoved me, hard, to the side. I fell onto the sharp rocks, pain lancing through my side. The shove sent him stumbling backward, but it also put him directly in Miller's path. Miller swung the gaff, not at Michael, but at his legs, trying to trip him, to bring him down. Michael dodged, but his foot slipped on the slimy rock. He let out a cry as he fell into the black water. The current grabbed him immediately, pulling him toward the cave mouth. He flailed, screaming, fighting against the pull. Miller waded in after him, the water up to his thighs, his face a mask of grim determination. He reached out with the gaff, hooking it into Michael's backpack. "No!" I screamed, scrambling to my feet. Miller was strong. He began to drag Michael, kicking and screaming, toward the dark opening. The sucking sound from the cave grew louder, more eager. I looked around wildly for a weapon, a rock, anything. My eyes fell on a heavy, branch-like piece of driftwood. I grabbed it, hefting its weight. I didn't think. I just ran into the water. The cold was a shock, stealing my breath. I swung the branch with all my strength at Old Man Miller's back. It connected with a solid thud. He grunted in surprise and pain, his grip on the gaff loosening for just a second. It was enough. Michael, with a final, desperate surge of strength, ripped himself free of the hook. The current, hungry and impatient, snatched him and pulled him under. He disappeared into the dark maw of the cave, his scream cut off abruptly by the water and the rock. The sucking sound stopped. The water swirled once, violently, and then was still. The offering had been accepted. Old Man Miller turned to me, his face not angry, but empty, defeated. The gaff hung limply in his hand. "It's done," he said, his voice flat. "The creek is fed." He waded out of the water and walked past me without another look, disappearing back into the trees, leaving me alone on the bank. I stood there, knee-deep in the icy water, shaking uncontrollably. The cave was silent. The water was calm. I had tried to save him. I had failed. I had helped deliver him. The creek provides. And I was now a part of its terrible, hungry tradition. I don't know how long I stood there, the icy water numbing my legs, the echo of Michael's final scream ringing in my ears. The forest was silent again, as if holding its breath. The hunt was over. The creek was satisfied. A life for the lives of the whole town. The words echoed in the hollow space inside me. I had become a participant, an accomplice. My attempt to save him had been the final act that delivered him to the current. I stumbled out of the water, my body leaden with shock and cold. I had to move. The others would be back. They would find me here. What was I? A witness? A failed offering? A new keeper of their secret? I scrambled up the bank, away from the cave's mouth, its darkness now feeling like a watching eye. I had no plan, no direction. I just ran, driven by a primal need to get away from that place, from the water, from the memory. I found a deer trail and followed it, my mind a blank static. The rain had softened to a cold drizzle. The gray light of dawn was beginning to filter through the canopy, turning the world a sickly shade of gray-green. I walked for hours. My clothes were soaked and freezing. My head throbbed where I'd hit the steering wheel. I was lost, truly lost, in a forest that felt complicit in the night's horror. Just as the trembling in my legs became unbearable, I broke through the tree line. I was on a paved road, a different one, and there, 100 yards away, was a small, weathered gas station, its lights a beacon in the gloom. I stumbled toward it, half expecting it to be another mirage, another part of the trap. The bell on the door jingled as I pushed it open. The warmth inside was a physical shock. A young woman with a kind, tired face looked up from behind the counter. "Oh, honey, you look like you've been through the ringer. Get caught in the storm." I just stared at her, my teeth chattering, unable to form words. She came around the counter, her face full of concern. "Let me get you some coffee. You're freezing. What happened?" "Car trouble." I nodded mutely, accepting the styrofoam cup she pressed into my hands. The heat burned my frozen fingers. I got lost. I finally managed to rasp. On the logging roads. My car. It's stuck. "Lord," she clucked sympathetically. "Those roads are a mess. You're lucky you found your way out. Old Man Miller usually puts out signs when they're impassable." The name was a bucket of ice water. I flinched. She noticed. "You know Miller? From the lodge?" I didn't answer. I just sipped the coffee, its bitterness an anchor to reality. She studied me for a moment, her kindness hardening into something more cautious. "You ain't from around here, are you?" I shook my head. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Look, I don't know what you saw or what you think happened out there, but this is a small town. We look out for our own. We have traditions, ways of doing things that might seem strange to outsiders." Her eyes were earnest, pleading. She wasn't threatening me. She was explaining, justifying. "The creek, it gives us a lot. Good water, good soil, tourism, but it has its moods. Sometimes it asks for something back, to keep the balance, to protect everyone else. You understand." I understood perfectly. I was being told the party line. I was being integrated into the conspiracy. "Your car," she said, changing the subject back to practicalities. "Where'd you leave it?" I described the area vaguely. She nodded. "I'll call Billy. He's got a tow truck. He can pull it out, get it to a shop. Discreet, you know? No need to involve the sheriff or nothing. That just causes paperwork and fuss." Paperwork and fuss. That's what a missing hiker was. She made the call, speaking in low, coded tones. "Yeah, a visitor. Got turned around on the back roads. Cars in the ravine near the source. Needs a quiet extraction." "Yeah." She hung up and gave me a reassuring smile. "Billy'll take care of it. He's good. It'll be like it never happened. Like it never happened." Michael Evans. His face, his terror, washed away, made quiet. An hour later, Billy arrived in his tow truck. He was a large, silent man who didn't meet my eyes. He drove me back to the wreck of my car. He hooked it up in silence. He didn't ask how it had gone off the road. He didn't comment on the blown tire, the massive dent in the fender. He drove me to a dusty, out-of-the-way garage on the edge of town. Another man worked silently, assessing the damage. "Might take a few days to get the parts," he grunted. I was given a room in a motel above the garage. It was clean, spare, and I was its only guest. I was a problem being contained, processed. The next day, my car was fixed. The bill was shockingly low. No charge for the tow, the mechanic said, wiping his hands on a rag. We look after our visitors. The message was clear. The debt was paid. My silence was the currency. I got in my car. I drove. I didn't look back. I drove until the mountains were a blue smudge on the horizon and the smell of pine was replaced by the smell of exhaust. I never told anyone. Who would believe me? A story about a sentient creek and a town of willing accomplices? I'd be laughed out of the room or committed. But sometimes, when I'm near a river or when it rains particularly hard, I hear it. The low, gurgling, sucking sound. And I see Michael's face in that final second before the water took him. And I remember the woman in the gas station's words. It'll be like it never happened. But it did happen. The creek provides. And I am its witness. Life moved on. I moved cities, changed jobs, tried to bury the memory of Ravenwood Creek under a mountain of mundane normality. I told myself it was a hallucination, a trauma-induced nightmare born of storm stress and isolation. But the world had shifted on its axis. I saw the secret rituals everywhere. In the way a town would rally around a corrupt official. In the way families would hide their shameful secrets. The world was full of silent pacts, of ugly traditions upheld for the sake of an illusory peace. Ravenwood was just a more literal version. I became obsessed with water. I'd spend hours staring at rivers, watching their flow, searching for a sign of that terrible, hungry intelligence. I stopped eating fish. I couldn't stand the smell of damp earth. The nightmares were constant. I'd be back in the water, the current pulling me toward the cave, but it would be Old Man Miller on the bank, nodding with approval. Or sometimes, it would be the deputy, herding me toward the brink with his flashlight. A year after it happened, I saw a news article online. A small snippet in a regional paper. Body of missing hiker recovered. Michael Evans. His body had been found, the article said, miraculously preserved, caught in a logjam 50 miles downstream from where he was last seen. The cause of death was drowning. A tragic accident. The article quoted the local sheriff. It quoted a grieving family. It did not quote the gas station attendant or the mechanic. The story was neat. Tidy. Closed. The creek had given him back. Once it was done with him. Once the offering was complete. I felt no relief. Only a colder, deeper dread. The system worked. It was flawless. I tried to find the town on a map. Ravenwood Creek. It was there, but the details were wrong. The lodge wasn't listed. The logging roads I remembered were faint, unmarked traces. It was as if the place was actively resisting being pinned down. Last week, I received a package in the mail. No return address. The postmark was from a town 2 counties over from Ravenwood. Inside, nestled in white tissue paper, was a small, carved wooden crow, identical to the key fob from the lodge. There was no note, but the message was clear. I am not forgotten. My silence is appreciated, but it is also monitored. I am a part of their ecosystem now, a loose thread they can never quite pull, for fear of unraveling everything. So they let me be. They let me live my life. But they remind me, every now and then, that they are there, that the creek is always there, waiting, watching, providing. I keep the wooden crow on my desk. It is my paperweight. It holds down the bills, the memos, the mundane paperwork of my life. It reminds me that underneath the civilized surface, the dark water still flows. Hungry, patient, and always, always waiting for its next offering.